Today there are a lot of interesting updates from the Siversk direction. Here, in a bold shift of strategy, Russian forces changed their approach to seize the high ground south of Bilohorivka to break and end the stalemate where thousands of Russian soldiers were eliminated before. However, as Ukrainians executed a swift response, Russian plans completely fell apart as the increase in Russian armor shortage left no hope for their soldiers of making it to Ukrainian positions alive. The goal of the Russian forces in this area is to take control of Siversk. However, as you remember from the previous report, their head-on advance in the east remained unsuccessful. Still, the main Russian offensive focus is on Bilohorivka, as taking the village would allow them to open up Ukrainian defenses and advance towards Siversk. However, Russians faced significant difficulties already at the first hurdle, losing thousands of soldiers and still being unable to take the small settlement even after 2 years of heavy fighting. If we look at the topographic map, we can see that Ukraine's key defensive advantage against direct Russian advances lies in the elevated chalk quarry and the high ground behind Bilohorivka, providing a commanding view of Russian frontal assaults. Due to the increased use of drones, Ukrainians repurposed the Terikon as an observation post and forward stronghold instead, allowing them to track and counter Russian movements as they approached the village. With both sides holding opposing hills, Russians were forced into a prolonged stalemate that continuously drained their forces. Natural obstacles such as the Siversky Donets River and the Kremina Forest further reinforced Ukrainian defenses by hindering Russian flanking maneuvers from the north. Notably, one of Russia's most devastating defeats occurred here early in the war when an entire battalion tactical group was wiped out attempting to cross the river. Since then, Ukrainian forces have pushed Russian troops farther from the river and secured the forest with special forces units, preventing any renewed flanking attempts from the north. However, to the south, towards Zolotarivka, we can see that Ukrainian fire control is limited due to a higher elevation hill ridge and dense forest, which blocks the direct line of sight for Ukrainian positions. This is why the Russians finally decided to change their approach and assault Bilohorivka from the southern flank, where they would have better concealment from Ukrainian fire. Russian forces sought to use Zolotarivka as a staging ground to advance westward toward two critical supply routes supporting Ukrainian troops in Bilohorivka and the Chok Quarry. A successful push could encircle Ukrainian defenders, forcing their withdrawal and enabling a Russian advance over the hill ridge into the lowlands. This would also drastically reshape the battle for the Serebryansky forest, compelling Ukrainian forces to shift to an all-around defense against Russian attacks from 3 directions. Although this was Russia's best tactical option, repeated attempts still ended in disaster. Unfortunately for Russians, Ukrainian commanders, having analyzed Bilohorivka's defensive potential over 2 years of active fighting, anticipated the southern flanking threat. To counter it, they fortified positions south of the quarry with trenches, strongholds, and reconnaissance drone teams monitoring for attacks. To compensate, Russian forces attempted mechanized assaults, but the winter's lack of vegetation exposed them to early detection and devastating Ukrainian fire, leading to heavy losses. Additionally, as recent successful Ukrainian operations have forced the Russian High Command to prioritize other offensive efforts, Russian forces here have been unable to replenish their armored losses, having to rely instead on motorcycles, ATVs, and buggies to cross open fields. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drone operators and artillery crews, drawing on 2 years of experience in the area, have been striking with pinpoint accuracy, systematically eliminating the Russian flanking attempts, as these fields are now littered with destroyed civilian vehicles Russians had to use for their assaults. Overall, the Ukrainian defense of Bilohorivka, layered and well planned, has effectively repelled repeated Russian assaults on the southern flank. Russian forces suffering heavy losses and an ongoing shortage of armored vehicles have once again failed to take control of the village. Despite Russian strategic shifts, the battle has underscored Ukraine's tactical skill and resilience, reflecting the overall stable and continued Ukrainian defense in the Donbas. If you are against the invasion of Ukraine and you want to support the work that I am doing, consider subscribing to our own independent news website. Here you can find our exclusive strategic insights, comprehensive overviews of all fronts, and regular tactical analysis videos. By subscribing, you will not only show your support for this channel, but also help and defend independent journalism. The link to our website is in the description. Thank you for watching this report, and I appreciate everyone who stepped up to join us.